hope you don't go through it too many times, but an experience you have as a sister or whatever, when you get beat pretty handily by an opponent, and you got to turn around and play another high-quality opponent. What's the fine psychological line between, you know, kind of, you got to tear some things down, but then you got to make sure you don't tear your guys down?
Well, I think that's going to be important during this entire process that we're under right now. You know, to focus on the things that you can control. You got to play a little harder. You got to do a better job on the glass. That means there's got to be a little more fight in you, a little more physicalness. You have to play with that. And you have to maintain your concentration and focus, because one of the things that has hurt us over the last few games we haven't played as well has been our turnovers. And many of them have been unforced turnovers, and that goes back to some concentration. You know, again, I always just talk about the daily process, and those things are built daily in practice, and that's when we have the guys the most, and that's the time we can influence them the most.
When you're not that personally familiar with an opponent, some of their personnel, of course, some things change year to year, but other guys don't change that quickly. They got a lot of guys that they had last year. Do you rely upon friends and networking, or do you just rely upon video?
A little bit of both. Obviously, you know, we take great pride in the preparation that we put in. A lot of that is with film. But at the same time, you do talk to other people that have played these teams in the non-conference, and you want to make sure that you get what their thoughts were heading into games, what they thought after the game as well. Obviously, first time going through the ACC, you spend more time than we will 3, 4, 5 years from now. But systems do change, as you said, personnel changes, but there's still some key components in every program that has made them successful. Obviously, when we look at our next opponent, Duke's pressure defense has been a trademark, their ability to pass and move the ball. So those are things that obviously you want to concentrate on heading into this first game.
Did Temple show you some things, or did they poke a stick in a hornet's nest and you're the next guy passing by the nest?
Well, we'll find out. You know, obviously I have an unbelievable amount of respect for Temple, competing against them for the last 8 years. I know how good they are. They have a unique team. They have their own system themselves. Always have big guards that can not only handle the ball, but they can really spread the court and make great one-on-one plays. And they're so difficult to score against because they keep everything in front of you with their size and so forth. And yeah, obviously kind of knew that that's the way they would play. And also, you got to give Coach K some credit. Not many ACC teams are going to go in and play on the road against an Atlantic 10 team, knowing how good they are, knowing how difficult, you know, with the whole city of Philadelphia at that game, how difficult that was going to be.
You mentioned the turnovers and then a lot of them were forced. Beyond that, did you see any commonalities that you wanted to address, whether it was part of the court or, you know, at what point of possession they occurred or anything like that?
You mean regarding the turnovers
Right.
specifically? A lot of it was unfortunately just, you know, at different points. Some of it was in the initial phase of the pressure. Some of it was in our half-court offense when we got the ball in our posts. Our post players had 9 turnovers in that game. Sometimes you just need to slow down and execute what we're trying to execute. Not, you know, again, as you move forward in this, the guys want to do well and they want to perform well. And sometimes you can't rush that. And a lot of times our turnovers are created out of impatience as opposed to anything else. And that's just something that we need to keep talking about and correct. And to be honest with you, sometimes experience is the thing that solves that problem the most.
To answer the question, but I mean, is there any way you can drill that in practice, or is it just like reps?
No, yeah. Obviously, in practice, you want to do things to put guys in more pressure situations. We don't have the ability defensively at all times to pressure, so sometimes it's hard to do that in practice. But obviously, today and tomorrow, that's something that we have to work on.
I think after the last game, you talked about Julian and how that last game would be a good learning experience for him. What have you done with them to maybe help?
Well, we gave him yesterday off, you know, which I think for everybody was good. You know, we've been going at it pretty hard. Haven't really had a day off. Get their bodies back, and showed them some film. We're going to show them some more film after practice today. Met with them, talked with them. He did a lot of good things, and you can see the progression that he's making as a player. But to continue to progress, you also have to look at the things you didn't do so well. and he has to embrace the physicalness that you have to play with at this level against the competition we're going to play against.
With Glenn, is it a matter of shot selection, or is it a lot more than that, limiting his minutes or limiting his minutes?
Well, I mean, overall, he's, I think, leading our team in minutes played or right there. You know, it's not really shot selection. You know, he just hasn't played as well, but we can't just point out him during this stretch, and I think sometimes we have a tendency to do that. Again, we said that one of his biggest challenges, but it's a challenge for everybody in our program, is consistency. And that's developed daily in your practice habits, and that's something that we all, as a program, have to get much better at.
Is it kind of easy for fans or even coaches to target the guy who, I guess it's probably fair to say, is maybe visibly, athletically the most gifted?
Well, yeah, and at the same time, as a player, you need to embrace that responsibility as well. And with that responsibility, and with some of the additional freedoms that come with that, comes a greater responsibility and a greater accountability. And you know, obviously, it goes back to a point that I've said many times. Each and every player in our program currently is in a completely different role than they ever have been before. And how they handle that role and the ups and downs that come with that role is going to be a key for us to continue to improve.
Coach, I think it's easy for a typical fan to watch the most recent result and maybe some other results and say, boy, I bet Coach Gregory's really going to bark at these guys the next time out. That doesn't strike me so far as your style. Maybe I'm
well, I can bark pretty good when I have to, but right now, in terms of where we're at, there's a time to do that, and there's certain things that are non-negotiable in terms of what we do, and when those things occur, then you know whatever needs to be done. But at the same time, you know, this is as they learn more about me and I learn more about them, and that's the process that we're under. You know, you have to find the right buttons to push, and you know, right now we need to grow daily, and so it can't just be the 40 minutes that are in front of the public. We need to improve as a program outside of those 40 minutes daily.
Safe to say there's a time to push and there's a time to pull. I mean, a time to pat guys on the back even if they haven't necessarily performed at a peak level recently.
Well, that's the one thing. The only thing when it comes to that, for the most part, the two main things. One, are you giving an unbelievable effort? Because that's not negotiable. You know, that has to be done. And with that, you may not get the results that you're getting right now, but what you are is you're building for the future because you're developing that habit. And get good enough players here talented enough. If they do that, good things are going to happen. And the second thing is you have to make sure that what is going on is what's best for the team. Players don't, you know, and that's a thing that we've really had to work on, is that everything we do is team oriented, and within that framework of the team, guys can have unbelievable individual efforts as well. And so those two things are the core of everything that we do, and it's really important that we never devalue those levels of standards that we have.
Well, dovetailing into some things you said, even predating the first tip of the season, there'll be times when we don't want to be measured by wins and losses, but rather the way we're going about our business.
Right.
If you were going to grade that as a team, are they giving you an A effort right now?
Well, our effort has not been as good, okay? But is it much better than it was 4 months ago on a consistent basis? Yes, there's no question about that. I see improvement in players, and but at the same time, remember, it's never going to be as fast as I want it to be.
Sure.
You know, which is good. That's the way it's supposed to be. But at the same time, you have to make sure you don't compromise those standards that you're setting, but also understand and have some patience in the process as well. It's not going to happen overnight, and we are, you know, we've said it before, changing the culture, changing the habits, changing the points of emphasis And not only do you have to learn them, then you have to perform them, and not only do you have to perform them, then you have to perform them on a daily basis, and that does take some time. And I think you've seen some inconsistency. And again, what ends up happening when you do it well, Georgia game, VCU game, different games, then everybody thinks, oh, the riddle is solved. Well, it's not. You have to, that's going to take some time. You got one side of the Rubik's Cube set, and then now you look around the corner and not everything is set there.